The first work of James Thurber I ever read on television was from his 1956 book, Further Fables for Our Time. Since we've been doing this online, I have not returned to Thurber's exquisite, precise updates on the format of Aesop. Let's correct that now with 4 of the beauties from the original volume, beginning with The Bat Who Got the Hell Out by James Thurber. A colony of bats living in a great American cave had got along fine for 1,000 generations, flying, hanging head down, eating insects, and raising young. And then one year a male named Flitter, who had fluttered secretly out of his room at night and flown among the haunts of men, told his father that he had decided to get the hell out. The shocked father sent Flitter to Flater, the great-great-grandfather of all the bats in the cave. "You should be proud of being a bat among bats," said old Flater, "for we are one of the oldest species on the planet, much older than man, and the only mammal capable of true flight." The discontented young bat was not impressed. "I want to live like a man among men," he said. "Men have the best food and the most fun and the cutest females." At this, old Flater stormed about the cave, squeaking unintelligibly. Then he recovered his calm and continued his talk. "A man got into my room one night," he said, "and managed somehow to tangle me in his hair. It was a shattering experience from which I shall never completely recover." "When men die, they go to heaven, but when bats are dead, they are dead," said Flitter. "I want to go to heaven when I die." This amused old Flater in a gaunt and gloomy sort of way, and he chittered, quickered, and zickered for some moments before he could say, "You have no more soul than a moose or a mouse or a mole. You should be glad that you will never become an angel, for angels do not have true flight. One wants to sleep through eternity, not bumble and flap about forever like a bee or a butterfly." But Flitter had made up his mind, and the old bat's words of wisdom were in vain. That night, the discontented young bat quit the cave colony and flickered out of the cave in the confident hope of giving up his membership in the Chiroptera and joining the happy breed of men. Unfortunately for his dream, he spent his first night hanging head down from the rafters of an auditorium in which a best-selling inspirationalist was dragging God down to the people's level. Ushers moved silently among the rapt listeners, selling copies of the speaker's books. "Shake Hands with the Almighty," "You Can Be Jehovah's Pal," and "Have You Taken Out Eternity Insurance?" The speaker was saying, "Have a little talk with the Lord while you're waiting for a bus, or riding to work, or sitting in the dentist's chair. Have comfy chats with the Lord in the little cozy corners of spare time." Flitter decided that there was something the matter with the acoustics or with his tragus, caused by hanging head down in the presence of the eternal species. But when he began flying about the auditorium, there was no change in the nature of the English sentences. "Tell the Lord to put it there," the inspired man went on. "Give him your duke." The speaker waved clasped hands above his head and gazed up at the ceiling. "Keep pitching, God," he said. "You got 2 strikes on Satan." Flitter, who had never felt sick before in his life, felt sick and decided to get the air. After he had got the air, he realized that he did not want to become a member of the species Homo sapiens because of the danger of bumbling or flapping into the inspirationalist after they had both become angels. And so Flitter returned to the cave, and everybody was astonished to see him, and nobody said anything, and for a time there was a great silence. "I've come the hell back," said Flitter meekly, and he resumed without discontent the immemorial life of the Chiroptera, flying, hanging head down, eating insects, and raising young. Moral: by decent minds is he abhorred who'd make a Babbit of the Lord. Our next, from Further Fables for Our Time, The Bears and the Monkeys by James Thurber. In a deep forest there lived many bears. They spent the winter sleeping and the summer playing leap bear and stealing honey and buns from nearby cottages. One day, a fast-talking monkey named Glib showed up and told them that their way of life was bad for bears. "You're prisoners of pastime," he said, "addicted to leap bear and slaves of honey and buns." The bears were impressed and frightened as Glib went on talking. "Your forebears have done this to you," he said. Glib was so glib, glibber than the glibbest monkey they had ever seen before, that the bears believed he must know more than they knew, or than anybody else. But when he left to tell other species what was the matter with them, the bears reverted to their fun and games and their theft of buns and honey. Their decadence made them bright of eye, light of heart, and quick of paw, and they had a wonderful time living as bears had always lived, until one day 2 of Glib's successors appeared, named Monkey Say and Monkey Do. They were even glibber than Glib, and they brought many presents and smiled all the way. "We've come to liberate you from freedom," they said. "This is the new liberation, twice as good as the old, since there are 2 of us." So each bear was made to wear a collar, and the collars were linked together with chains, and Monkey Do put a ring in the lead bear's nose and a chain on the lead bear's ring. "Now you are free to do what I tell you to do," said Monkey Do. "Now you are free to say what I want you to say," said Monkey Say. "By sparing you the burden of electing your leaders, we save you from the dangers of choice. No more secret ballots. Everything open and above board." For a long time, the bears submitted to the new liberation and chanted the slogan the monkeys had taught them. "Why stand on your own 2 feet when you can stand on ours?" Then one day, they broke the chains of their new freedom and found their way back to the deep forest and began playing leap bear again and stealing honey and buns from the nearby cottages. And their laughter and gaiety rang through the forest, and birds that had ceased singing began singing again, and all the sounds of the earth were like music. Moral: it is better to have the ring of freedom in your ears than in your nose. Our third selection: The Human Being and the Dinosaur, by James Thurber. Ages ago, in a wasteland of time and a wilderness of space, man, in uppercase, and dinosaur, in lower, first came face to face. They stood like stones for a long while, wary and watchful, taking each other in. Something told the dinosaur that he beheld before him the coming glory and terror of the world, and in the still air of the young planet he seemed to catch the faint smell of his own inevitable doom. "Greetings, stupid," said man. "Behold in me the artfully articulated architect of the future, the chosen species, the certain survivor, the indestructible one, the monarch of all you survey and of all that everyone else surveys, for that matter. On the other hand, you are, curiously enough, for all your size, a member of the inconsequent ephemera. You are one of God's moderately amusing early experiments, a frail footnote to natural history, a contraption in a museum for future man to marvel at, an excellent example of Jehovah's jejune juvenilia." The dinosaur sighed with a sound like thunder. "Perpetuating your species," man continued, "would be foolish and futile." "The missing link is not lost," said the dinosaur sorrowfully. "It's hiding." Man paid the doomed dinosaur no mind. "If there were no man, it would be necessary to create one," said man. "For God moves in mysterious but inefficient ways, and he needs help. Man will go on forever, but you will be on one with the mammoth and the mastodon, for monstrosity is the behe-mother of extinction." "There are worse things than being extinct," said the dinosaur sourly, "and one of them is being you." Man strutted a little pace and flexed his muscles. "You cannot even commit murder," he said, "for murder requires a mind. You are capable only of dinosaur slaughter. You and your ilk are incapable of devising increasingly effective methods of destroying your own species, and at the same time, increasingly miraculous methods of keeping it extant. You will never live to know the two-party system, the multi-party system, and the one-party system. You will be gone long before I have made this the best of all possible worlds, no matter how possible all other worlds may be. In your highest state of evolution, you could not develop the brain cells to prove innocent men guilty, even after their acquittal. You are all wrong in the crotch, and in the cranium, and in the cortex. But I have wasted enough time on you. I must use these fingers which God gave me, and now probably wishes he had kept for himself, to begin writing those noble volumes about me, which will one day run to several 100 billion items, Many of them about war, death, conquest, decline, fall, blood, sweat, tears, threats, warnings, boasts, hopelessness, hell, heels, and whores. There will be little enough about you and your ilk, and your kith and your kin. For after all, who were you and your ilk and your kith and your kin? Good day and goodbye, said man in conclusion. I shall see to it that your species receives a decent burial with some simple ceremony. Man, as it turned out, was right. The dinosaur and his ilk and his kith and his kin died not long after, still in lower case, but with a curious smile of satisfaction or something of the sort on their ephemeral faces. Moral? The noblest study of mankind is man, says man. And the last of our further fables for today, Two Dogs by James Thurber. One sultry, moonless night, a leopard escaped from a circus and slunk away into the shadows of a city. The chief of police dogs assigned to the case a German shepherd named Plunger and a plainclothes bloodhound named Plod. Plod was a slow, methodical sleuth, but his uniformed partner was restless and impatient. Plod set the place until Plunger snapped, "We couldn't catch a turtle this way," and bounded along the trail like a whippet. He got lost. When Plod found him, half an hour later, the bloodhound said, "It's better to get somewhere slowly than nowhere fast." "Repose is for the buried," said the police dog. "I even chased cats in my dreams." "I don't," said the bloodhound. "Out of scent, out of mind." As they went along, each in his own way, through the moonlessness, they exchanged further observations on life. "He who hunts and turns away may live to hunt another day," commented Plod. "Runs away, you mean," sneered Plunger. "I never run," said the bloodhound. "It's no good trailing a cat when you're out of breath, especially if the cat isn't. I figured that out myself. They call it instinct." "I was taught to do what I do and not to do what I don't," the police dog said. "They call it discipline. When I catch cats, cats stay caught," he added. "I don't catch them. I merely find out where they are," the bloodhound said quietly. The two dogs suddenly made out a great dark house looming in front of them at the end of a lane. "The trail ends right here, 20 feet from that window," the bloodhound said, sniffing a certain spot. "Leopard must have leaped into the house from here." The two dogs stared into the open window of the dark and silent house. "I was taught to jump through the open windows of dark houses," said Plunger. "I taught myself not to," said Plod. "I wouldn't grab that cat if I were you. I never grab a leopard unless it's a coat." But Plunger wasn't listening. "Here goes," he said jauntily, and he jumped through the window of the dark and silent house. Instantly, there was a racket that sounded to the keen ears of the bloodhound like a police dog forcibly being dressed in women's clothes by a leopard. And that is precisely what it was. All of a moment, Plunger, dressed in women's clothes from hat to shoes, with a pink parasol thrust under his collar, came hurtling out the window. "I had my knee on his chest, too," said the bewildered police dog plaintively. The old sleuth sighed. "He lasteth longest and liveth best who gets not his knee on his quarry's chest," murmured Plod in cloudy English but fluent bloodhound. Moral? Who would avoid life's riotous laughter should not attain the thing he's after. 4. Further Fables for Our Time by James Thurber. See you June 20th.